Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. I spent about a week and a half reading some hyped contemporary romances and I'm going to share my thoughts on them today. When I say hyped, I mean most of these are by popular authors, very beloved contemporary romance authors, and also I personally was hyped for them as well. And besides all of these being contemporary romances, kind of rom-com-ish, though not that rom-com really means anything anymore, they all have really gorgeous yellow covers. I have 6 books to talk about today, these 5 and the upcoming Christina Lauren book, so let's jump into it. The first book that I read was the new Sarah Hogle book, Twice Shy. This is her second release, her sophomore book. Her debut, You Deserve Each Other, put her on everyone's TBR and everyone's radar. I read that one. I did not love it as much as everyone else did, so I will admit to going into Twice Shy a little bit wary, but from all the reviews that I saw, reviews from people who both loved and did not love her first book, they seem to be loving Twice Shy, so I did get a little bit more excited before I started, and thankfully I did really like this one. I give it 4 stars. It was a very soft and sweet romance. It's really short too, only about 300 pages. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I think the main reason why I enjoyed it so much was because I just was not as annoyed as I was for You Deserve Each Other. Twice Shy is about Maybelle and Wesley's romance. Maybelle is the kind of girl who is trying to make ends meet. She works at a shitty job she hates that doesn't appreciate her, but she does what she's told. She is a pushover when it comes to her job and her friends, one of whom is a co-worker who loves to take advantage of her. And one way that this co-worker took advantage of her was by catfishing Maybelle. She was so awful. She made Maybelle fall in love, have a romance with this completely made up person. So Maybelle is just over everything, but her luck seems to finally turn for the better when she inherits her great aunt's estate. She has really fond memories of this house. Her mom is a deadbeat, but the little time that she spent with her great aunt was one of the best memories that she ever had. So Maybelle quits her job, ready to make a new life for herself, live in this beautiful new house of hers, but then she arrives and it turns out this estate is run down. In the last few years of her great aunt Violet's life, she was an insane hoarder. So not only is the estate run down, there's also a ton of crap inside the house. And not only that, it turns out Maybelle is not the sole inheritor. She has to share this estate with the groundskeeper Wesley. And even more on top of that, to make things even more complicated, Wesley is the guy that Maybelle's coworker catfished her with. The fake profile used Wesley's face, his photos, so Maybelle literally fell in love with Wesley just as a different person. This all happens within the first 30 pages, so it's like non-stop hits for Maybelle. This girl does not get a break, but this is how she and Wesley meet, how they first start their romance, even though it gets off to a very, very rough start because Wesley is the biggest grump. He's taciturn, he communicates through grunts, and then we find out that it's because Wesley is the shyest boy, the shyest, softest boy, who is a total teddy bear inside. Maybelle is the perfect sunshine character to Wesley's grump, so if you love grumpy sunshine tropes, you will love this book. She's constantly looking on the bright side of things. There's this little quirk to her character where she loves to daydream. Something happens and then she'll start imagining things for herself, building this incredible life for herself with a million metaphors that did get a little tiring after a bit. Like, it's cute to read towards the beginning, but then after a while, where it happened constantly, I grew a bit tired of it and just wanted Maybelle to stay a little bit more grounded instead of just keeping her head in the clouds. So most of the story is taking place on this estate, trying to fix it up, clean it up. Wesley and Maybelle find themselves in a lot of ridiculous and adorable situations, and then they start falling for each other, and it's just really cute and really sweet. I will admit there's not much for character development, like how Maybelle turns from a big pushover to finally standing up for herself. That doesn't really happen until the very, very end. And Wesley too, with him trying to overcome his fear, his humongous fear of flying and of other people, of crowds. But still, even though it wasn't like the perfect read, it was still really enjoyable. I had a fun time reading it. It read really, really easy and quickly. As someone who didn't love Sarah Hogle's debut, I would still recommend Twice Shy if you love like the whole grumpy sunshine trope, if you want a book that's fairly low drama and has a ton of cuteness. And then I finally read Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the one book that is not a a 2021 new release, but I chose to read this one instead of Talia Hibbert's actual 2021 release, which is book 3 in the series, because this one has a yellow cover and I just wanted everything to match. So this is book 2 in the Brown Sisters series. I read book 1, Chloe's book, loved it, and Danny's book was also really great. I give it 4 stars. It could have been a 5, but I just had a couple gripes, but still, it's Talia Hibbert. Her writing is fantastic. I love her sense of humor. I love her quirky characters, and this book is also a fake dating romance. Danny is a PhD student, so she teaches some classes at the university, and Zaf works in security at the university, so he works at the front desk as the front guard. And every morning, Danny stops by Zaf's desk to chat a little bit, give each other coffee and snacks, so they are pretty good friends. But then during a fire drill, Danny accidentally ends up stuck in an elevator, and Zaf literally busts open this elevator to save Danny. He carries her princess style in his arms outside of the building where everyone else is. He's all gorgeous and heroic looking. People take photos and videos of it, and they go viral. So this is when the whole fake dating, fake relationship starts. Zaf's side job is this charity that he runs that deals with mental health for athletes, for rugby players, because he was a former professional rugby player. And because of this video of him carrying Danny going viral, his charity is going viral as well. It's giving a ton of publicity, a ton of donors to his charity. So he asked Danny to continue faking this little relationship of theirs to help his charity. And I mean, what kind of girl can say no to not only Zaf and his gorgeous self, but also him asking to help out his charity, right? And at first they're like, okay, we can do this without involving any messy feelings, because Danny is practically allergic to anything romantic and emotional. She refuses to ever fall in love or have anyone fall in love with her. But Zaf, of course, has had the biggest crush on Danny since he first met her. That's the main source of conflict for the romance between them. Danny being like, no, I can't love you, and Zaf being, okay, I have to be okay with this, and this has to be enough for me. And I will admit this part did get a little tiring to read because it does go on for quite a long time. I love Danny, but she was just so stubborn with this whole part, with her being like, no, I can't fall in love with you, even though I already am feeling some messy feelings for you. But really, that was my main complaint about this book. Otherwise, I loved everything else. The steam is great. I mean, it is Talia Hibbert, and even though it's got this really cute rom-com cover, it's hot. Definitely the hottest book of all 6 books that I read. Zaf was my perfect guy. Usually I connect more with the heroines, but in this case I really connected with Zaf, mainly because he loved reading romance novels and would listen to romance audiobooks during work. There's a scene where Zaf was listening to an audiobook and his headphones got unplugged, so Danny overhears this sex scene that he was listening to. He's a really soft and adorable hero who gets very horny for Danny. They were fantastic. I love them together, and Danny's big gesture at the end, I think in the epilogue, it was so freaking perfect. It was a great read. I didn't expect anything else from Talia Hibbert, and now I am very excited to read book 3. Next, I read the new Abby Jimenez book. This one was another 4-star read. It wasn't quite as good as Abby's last release, the Happy Ever After playlist, but still a really solid read for me. I was a little scared to go into this because I heard some conflicting feelings about the end, but I didn't really have that much of a problem with it once I got to the ending, because I mean, it's a romance, right? Happily ever after guaranteed at the end. And I know the whole bait and switch thing is kind of an Abby Jimenez thing. I mean, she did it in the most annoying way in her debut book, The Friend Zone. But here with Life's Too Short, I wasn't quite as annoyed as I was with The Friend Zone. So this was a really fun read. Friends to Lovers, very slow burn. Slow burn in the way that the heroine, kind of like Danny from the Talia Hibbert book, refuses to allow love in her life. And the main reason why this heroine, Vanessa, does not want to ever fall in love, have anyone else fall in love with her, is because she may have ALS. ALS is a disease that affects the nervous system. If you have it, it is fatal. There's a whole ice bucket challenge quite a few years ago that was about ALS. And in Vanessa's family, ALS is hereditary. It took her mother and her sister. So Vanessa is just expecting to die before 4:30, which does sound really depressing, but I was impressed by the way Abby Jimenez was able to make the story feel as lighthearted as possible, and that was mainly because Vanessa lived by the whole motto, life's too short, do what you want, live life to the fullest, which she really has since becoming a YouTuber. She's chronicled her life, her travels, she's chronicled every fun thing that she's ever done because she expected to die young. But then she gets custody of her niece, which puts a cramp in her travel YouTuber lifestyle. Vanessa has to take care of a kid 24/7, and that's where our hero comes in, our hot lawyer neighbor Adrian. He ends up helping Vanessa one night, getting Grace to stop her crying and getting her to sleep, and from there it kind of snowballs to them hanging out almost every day, having dinner, having lunch together, Adrian taking care of Grace when Vanessa is busy, and this really wonderful and lovely friendship develops between Adrian and Vanessa. So if you love Friends to Lovers, I highly recommend you try this. There's a whole host of issues with Vanessa's very messed up family, and Vanessa being very adamant that Adrian cannot fall for her, he cannot develop any feelings for her. They have to be strictly friends, but if he wants to have sex with her, that's cool with her. I really liked Adrian and Vanessa's characters. They are so adorable with Grace. I really love that Vanessa is a YouTuber. I don't really see that very much in books. We get some good cameos with Abby Jimenez's two previous couples. It was a good, solid read that deals with this very serious and literally deadly thing in a fun and emotional way. I don't know if anyone wants to know about the ending, but I'll just emphasize that it's a romance, which means happily ever after at the end, guaranteed. My next rom-com-ish read was Anchored Hearts by Priscilla Oliveras. This is book 2, the second standalone in her Keys to Love series. Book 1 was Island Affair, which was an okay read for me, and sadly the second book was also another okay read. I gave it 3 stars. I expected and wanted a lot more romance than what we got here, which was my main disappointment. It's a second chance romance, which if you know me, you know I love. I was excited to be back in Key West, to be back with the Navarro family, this time with Ana Maria and Alejandro. These two were high school sweethearts, but they broke up about a decade ago when Alejandro wanted to leave Key West to travel the world to pursue his photography career, but Ana Maria didn't want to leave Key West, to leave her family, at least not as permanently as Alejandro wanted to. But now Alejandro is back in Key West after a decade because he broke his leg during a photography stunt. I really love the sense of community and family in this series. I mean, everyone is just trying to meddle in Ana Maria and Alejandro's romance, in their second chance romance, trying to get them back together. Sadly though, I was not feeling the romance, the second chance romance. It is so slow burn, and honestly neither of the main characters kind of wanted to get back together. Yes, they still did have messy feelings for each other, but they have both completely moved on. There really wasn't much romance or chemistry until towards the end of the book, which is a little bit too late for me, and a majority of the book also focused a lot on some outside problems, like Alejandro and his estranged relationship with his father. So I did get bored waiting for the romance to happen. I will say I did love being back in this whole Key West setting. It does have the perfect vibes for like a vacation beach read. And again, I did love the whole tight-knit family, which was also my favorite thing about book 1 in this series. Sadly, as much as I wanted to love this one, it didn't quite live up to my expectations. And then I read Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This one I will say is the least romancy of all 6 books that I read, but I did know that going in, so it was fine. I was so excited to read this one because 1, it is super Asian. The heroine comes from a Chinese Indonesian immigrant family, and 2, the plot sounded ridiculous and awesome. The heroine accidentally kills her date, and she gets the help of her mom and 3 aunties to get rid of the body. I love this one. I had such a fun time reading it. I give it 4.5 stars, very close to a 5, because even though I did go into expecting not much romance, I still wanted a little bit more. So with Maddie and her family, we get a blend of Chinese and Indonesian cultures. They live in Southern California, which is where I am. They're in San Gabriel Valley, which has a huge Asian population, and it's actually where my parents first lived, where they lived when they first moved here from Asia. They don't live there now, we don't live there, but growing up we would go into San Gabriel Valley every like 2 weeks to visit family or eat dim sum, lunch, or dinner. So this whole setting of the book was just so nostalgic and familiar to me. Love that. But getting into the actual story, Medi, our heroine, she lives with her mother, and they are all very close with her 3 aunts, her mom's 3 sisters. Medi actually does want to fly the coop, go, leave, and do her own thing besides working for her family's wedding planning business, but she feels really guilty that the rest of her cousins left her mom and her aunts, so she stays. Then one night she's roped into a date that her mom set up. The mom was actually pretending to be Medi and talking with this guy online on an app. Medi goes anyway, but then when the date goes sour and the guy gets a bit too handsy, Medi tasers him while he's driving. They get in an accident and now he's dead. Medi is panicking, she has no idea what to do, so she dumps the body in the trunk of the car and drives all the way back home, and that's where her mom and aunts come to the rescue. Unfortunately, they don't actually have time to get rid of the body because that weekend they have a wedding to set up for. They bring the body with them onto the island resort where the wedding is supposed to happen, and all this chaos ensues. They all take turns with the body, trying to cover it up or move it around so no one can see it. It was ridiculous, hilarious, and so much fun to read. The aunties were definitely the highlight of this book. They were so over the top and hilarious. They got up to so many shenanigans trying to get rid of the body. I was dying over Maddie just being so resigned to everything that was happening. Even though the whole dead body thing and the aunties are all very over the top, you can definitely tell how much they all care about each other, how much they all love each other. I mean, they wouldn't try to get rid of a dead body if they didn't love each other, love Medi so much. The whole wedding, the wedding party, it was very reminiscent of the wedding in Crazy Rich Asians, so that was fun. And then of course there is the second chance romance between Medi and her college sweetheart. Nathan is the owner of the island resort where the wedding is taking place, and that's how they reunite. Nathan is a total sweetheart, such a good guy. I was so happy to see him and Medi get back together. And yes, I do wish we got a little bit more of Nathan and the actual romance, but still, I love this book. I had the best time reading it. I highly recommend it because you're in for some ridiculous shenanigans once you start. And the final book to wrap up this list of books is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This one has an interesting setup with a dating app, but with a twist. I sadly did not love it. I gave it 3 stars. It was very okay. I have been struggling a lot with Christina Lauren's more later releases. They're books that are more women's fiction than actually romance. They're books that were very not steamy, so this one is pretty on par with how I felt about those books. The premise of it did have potential. We have a heroine, Jess, who's a single mom. She gets invited to take part of this DNA-based matchmaking company, and they do touch upon the company's goal being very eugenics-like. I'm not sure that they really did settle that it wasn't eugenics, but I just went with it. So Jess fits in a tube, they do their whole DNA matchmaking thing, and she's matched up with the person that they think would fit her the best. She gets a 98% compatibility, which is the highest rate that they've ever had, with one of the company's founders, Dr. River Pena. Unfortunately, River and Jess do not get along, so they are stupefied that they are a possible match, and a 98% match at that. But with the company about to go public and Jess needing some money because one of her clients dropped, they make a deal for Jess and River to pretend to date and for them to see where this whole matchmaking thing can go. I sadly just did not love Jess or River's characters. They felt like the most bland characters ever. My favorite characters of this book were Jess's daughter Juno and Jess's grandfather. Oh, and also Jess's best friend Fizzy was hilarious. They were so fun and adorable, Juno especially. And I mean, I did like seeing River and how he was with Juno, but still, River and Jess's characters were so boring to read. I didn't hate them, but I wasn't really feeling anything between them either. The romance was okay. There was a bit too much of the whole technical parts, the sciencey parts to really make it engaging. It's kind of enemies to lovers, and I was interested to see how they would change each other's first impressions, which were not that great. It was an underwhelming romance. I definitely expected more, especially from this author that I used to love. Also, the ending could have used a lot more grovel because River does something really dumb and Jess took him back way too easily. So yeah, this one was quite the disappointing read. Those were my thoughts on these 6 contemporary romances. If you read any of them, let me know your thoughts. I know the Christina Lauren book isn't out for another couple days, but I'm interested to see how everyone thinks of it. Links to all the books will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!